Today we're going to be making a hash brown breakfast casserole, and all of the ingredients came from the Dollar Tree. You'll need a bag of frozen hash browns, a dozen eggs, a package of sausage links, 2 blocks of cheese, I'm using cheddar and pepper jack, and a bag of frozen pepper stir fry. I thawed my hash browns in the fridge overnight. I went ahead and added these to a bowl with a couple of tablespoons of oil and some salt and pepper. I mixed this to ensure everything was coated, and then I lined a glass baking dish with a sheet of parchment paper. I baked my potatoes at 400 degrees for about 25 minutes to begin roasting them for the casserole. As always, I gave my frozen stir-fry mix a rough chop. No need to be precise here, you're just breaking up any large chunks. I warmed my skillet up over medium-high heat, and I added in my sausage first. I broke it up into bite-sized pieces as I added it to the skillet, and I allowed this to cook until brown. Transfer your sausage into a bowl and set aside. In the same skillet, over the same heat, go ahead and add in your vegetable stir-fry mix and saute this until all of the excess liquid from the frozen vegetables has evaporated off. In the event that you don't have a cheese grater, these small blocks of cheese are very easy to cut with a knife by hand. You're just going to chop it into small chunks. Crack all of your eggs into a bowl and whisk with a fork until they are scrambled. To my eggs, I added in half of my cheese, all of my sausage, and all of my pepper stir-fry. Then just toss well to make sure everything's combined. Pour this mixture over your pre-baked hash browns and top with the rest of your cheese. Bake this at 350 degrees for 30 minutes. Here is your finished breakfast casserole out of the oven. All that's left to do is plate it up and serve, but be sure to remove the parchment paper first. I served this to myself, my boyfriend, and his 2 kids, and everyone who tried it loved it. I also thought this would be a good opportunity to try this avocado hot sauce, so I put some on top and gave it a go. I thought it was okay. It kind of tasted like salsa verde. If you add on a loaf of bread and a package of sliced cheese, you can turn this breakfast casserole into breakfast sandwiches, and I really liked it that way. This one is a fantastic make-ahead recipe, and here is the cost breakdown for you. Today we're making Taco Bell inspired breakfast Crunchwraps, and we're doing it all from the Dollar Tree. You'll need some mayonnaise, some pickled jalapenos. I recommend the kind in the can versus the kind in the jar because the jar has a bit of a funny aftertaste to me. Garlic powder and paprika, and yes, I do use seasonings from time to time. Flour tortillas, frozen hash brown patties, a 6-pack of eggs, some classic sausage, and some cheddar cheese. First, we'll make the Taco Bell creamy jalapeno sauce. This is one of their signature sauces that they put on their quesadillas, their breakfast crunch wraps, and a variety of other items. Starting with the jalapenos, these are whole pickled jalapenos, so you will need to cut off the top, cut them in half, and de-seed them with a spoon the same way you would with a fresh jalapeno. Then you'll want to mince your jalapenos very finely. You can alternatively put this all in a blender, but I was trying to avoid using as many appliances as possible. I used about 3 small jalapenos, which ended up being about a 1/4 cup or so of minced jalapeno. To a bowl, I added in my entire jar of mayonnaise, which was around a cup or so. To your mayonnaise, you'll add your minced jalapeno, followed by 2 tablespoons of the pickle juice from your pickled jalapenos, and 2 teaspoons each of paprika and garlic powder. Mix this well to combine and allow it to marinate in the fridge, overnight preferably. I did mine for about an hour or so while I prepared the rest of my ingredients. In a skillet with about a 1/2 inch of vegetable oil, I fried all 5 of my hash brown patties for around 8 minutes per side. I know the directions say 3 to 4 minutes, but you really need longer than that to get them crispy. I removed them to a paper towel and allowed them to drain. I browned and crumbled my sausage, and I left the drippings in the pan so I could scramble the eggs right in that. The only other prep work to do is to grate your cheese. So I had to play around with ratios because if you overstuff these, you won't be able to fold them in a true Crunchwrap fashion like Taco Bell does, because Taco Bell uses a 10-inch tortilla, whereas these Dollar Tree tortillas are more like 7 inches. So here's what I recommend instead. Keep your skillet on about medium heat and warm up your tortilla for around 5 seconds each side to make it pliable. To each tortilla, add just 1/2 of each hash brown patty. Drizzle that with some of your jalapeno sauce. Add a spoonful of eggs, a spoonful of sausage, and a pinch or so of cheddar cheese. You can then fold it in the pentagon shape that Taco Bell does. All that's left to do is to grill it on a skillet for about a minute on each side. Here are your finished Crunchwraps ready to go. You would get about 10 of these with the ingredients I showed today because you're only using half of each hash brown patty. And you guys already probably know that I was totally in love with these. I am a true Taco Bell addict and I would work my way through their entire menu if you gave me time to do so. Today we're making no egg breakfast burritos. I've been wanting to make Taco Bell's breakfast Crunchwraps, but since my Dollar Tree's been out of eggs, I decided to make these no egg burritos instead. You will need flour tortillas, sausage, I'm using the maple flavor but feel free to use the original, a package of frozen hash brown patties, a package of frozen seasoning blend, and a block of cheddar cheese. Starting off with the tortillas, the Dollar Tree tortillas can stick together just a little bit, so some of you recommended microwaving them in a damp paper towel for 30 seconds, and I did try that and found that it helped a little bit, but I still had a few tortillas that stuck together and I had to scrap in the end. I also decided to cube up my frozen hash brown patties. While you can definitely fry them in their whole state, I wanted to get more burritos out of them than just the 5 individual patties. Plus, I thought that if I cut them into smaller pieces, you would have more crispy edges, and that would definitely add to the dish. The only other prep work to do in the beginning is to grate the cheese. I'm going to cook everything in one skillet just to save on dishes, so I started off by frying my sausage over medium-high heat. I broke it up with a spatula as I cooked it so that it was more of a crumbled texture. When my sausage was done, I added in about half my bag of seasoning blend and allowed this to continue to saute until the seasoning blend had evaporated off all of the excess liquid from the frozen vegetables. This also has the benefit of taking off any of the sausage drippings from the bottom of the pan. This should take about 5 minutes or so, and then you can remove it to a bowl and set aside for later. To the same skillet, I added in about 1/4 inch deep of vegetable oil so that we can fry our hash brown patties. Working on medium heat, I fried my hash brown patty cubes for around 3 to 4 minutes before I flipped them over and cooked them for the same amount of time on the other side. Once they were golden brown and crispy, I removed them to a plate lined with a paper towel so they could drain. I had to fry the hash browns in about 2 batches, but then they are ready to go and we can assemble our burritos. I made 6 burritos with these ingredients today, but I did make mine quite full, so you could stretch this even further and make 8 if you wanted to. All I did was evenly distribute my sausage, potatoes, and cheese between all 6 of my flour tortillas. Since I did make these quite full, I decided to fold them with one end open just to make them easier to wrap. And here are your finished breakfast burritos ready to serve. Because I used maple sausage, these ones that I made had a sweet and salty vibe, which some of you may or may not like. And these Dollar Tree hash brown patties were so good. They were very well seasoned and incredibly crispy. They cooked up very well, and they were one of my favorite Dollar Tree finds to date. Today we're making sausage and gravy biscuits. This is a $5 recipe that feeds 4 people. I made it this past weekend in a hotel that had a skillet but not an oven, so I had to adjust it for a stovetop version. I used a packet of buttermilk biscuit mix, a packet of country gravy mix, and 2 logs of classic sausage. Starting with the biscuits, I added the biscuit mix into a bowl along with 1/2 cup of water per the package instructions. I mixed this until combined and then I divided it into 8 even pieces. I rolled those each into a ball and flattened them out into a disc shape, and you want them to be relatively thin because we're actually going to be cooking these on a skillet. Next, mix your packet of gravy mix into 2 cups of cold water and mix well with a fork or a whisk. In a large skillet on medium-high heat, I added both logs of sausage and I crumbled and browned them. Move your crumbled sausage to a bowl to set aside and remove all but a tablespoon or so of your sausage drippings to fry the biscuits in. Reduce your heat to medium-low and add each of your biscuits to the skillet. Cover with a lid and allow them to cook for 10 minutes. Then you're going to flip them over and allow them to brown up on the other side. This only takes a couple of minutes and then you can remove your biscuits and we can finish working on our gravy. Increase your heat to medium-high and return your sausage to the skillet along with your prepared gravy mix. Stir this constantly until the gravy is thickened and begins to boil. This should take between 3 to 5 minutes. All that's left to do is plate these up. Each plate gets 2 biscuits cut in half and then split your gravy evenly between them. Now take it from somebody who grew up in North Carolina where sausage and gravy biscuits are such a big deal that McDonald's sells them for breakfast. These may be a shortcut version, but they definitely taste like the real deal. Today we're going to be making this easy 3-ingredient strawberry breakfast biscuit. All of the ingredients came from the Dollar Tree. You'll need buttermilk biscuit mix, frozen strawberries that have been thawed overnight, and some powdered sugar, but I'll show you an alternative for this later. Drain your thawed berries over a bowl, but save the liquid, we're going to use that later. Dice your berries as finely as you'd like them. After this, you're probably going to need to drain off any extra liquid that came off. Add your biscuit mix into a bowl with 1/2 cup of water per the package instructions and mix it until almost combined, not all the way combined. At this point, you're going to add in your minced strawberries and mix it until completely combined. I lined a small baking dish with parchment paper and I dolloped 4 large biscuits onto this. You can also make 6 smaller biscuits if you choose, but I wanted larger ones. I baked the biscuits at 400 degrees for 20 minutes, and while the biscuits are baking, we're going to prepare the glaze. So in case you can't find powdered sugar at your store like I couldn't, I want to show you how to take regular granulated sugar and turn it into powdered sugar. All you need is a blender or food processor, add 1 cup of granulated sugar, and blend for about 1 minute. It won't be quite as fine as powdered sugar, it'll still have a little bit of grit. You'll want to sift it to get out any large chunks of sugar, but otherwise it'll work perfectly for this glaze today. After sifting all of your sugar, add in 2 tablespoons of our reserved strawberry juice, and mix well to combine. You're going to want to cover this and set aside so it doesn't get a crust on top while your biscuits finish baking. After your biscuits come out of the oven, you can either choose to glaze them in the pan or on a plate. I chose to glaze them on a plate just because I wanted to try a biscuit without the glaze just to see what it tasted like on its own. The biscuits without the glaze were a little bit too buttery tasting and the strawberry flavor didn't really come through as well, so I would definitely recommend the glaze, although they tasted pretty decent on their own. This recipe cost just $3.75 to make, and as always, if you give it a try, let me know in the comments below.